Just in regards to the FP&A professionals on your team, how do you have a philosophy about how you use them, where you do and where you don't? What's a good use of their time?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that has evolved at Braze over the last couple of years in a really kind of cool and interesting way. So I always like to say that CFOs are not necessarily here to say, you can definitely do this and you can definitely never do this. It's never a blanket yes or a blanket no. Now, of course, if we're going to do something that's going to be, hugely detrimental to the organization, I'm obviously going to raise the red flag. However, I believe that the CFO's actual function is to bring to light and quantify the implication of various choices that are available to us. And then around the table with all the right decision makers, we as a leadership team can collectively decide which direction do we go? How much do we invest? Where do we invest? What is the totality of kind of the Braze animal look like over time? And so I think the FP&A team is a critical calculator and strategic partner in helping bring to life exactly what the implication of some of these choices are. There's a second aspect to the FP&A team, which is they are direct partners to the business to help them understand how are they actually deploying the resources that are at their disposal. And so how are they tracking on their budgets? And you can do this in a couple of different ways. You can have a cadence that says, hey, we're going to have a look back at the end of every quarter, and then we're kind of going to grade you on how you did relative to what we said you should do. Or we can sit side by side with you month over month and do variance analyses every month and elucidate where you're doing well, where you're coming short, where you're deploying what we would expect you would deploy, where you're deploying too much or too little, and redirect on a much more real-time basis. And so I've definitely pushed our organization more towards quicker twitch reporting, more scenario analysis, more what ifs, and more direct, partnership with the business heads so that we can be making decisions in real time, as opposed to just a look back that then says, okay, well, here's where you succeeded and where you failed, and better luck next time.
The company a little differently about it might be just a functional area that you drew their attention to this number and said, you folks really need to understand this better and why. Yeah. And whether it changed the behaviors as you made that effort. Anything you could share?
Absolutely. This is a great question. It's really interesting for an organization like Braze. And it's going to seem like a very obvious metric when I say it, but I'll explain why it was so important to educate, particularly our sales organization. So the metric is revenue. And if you are a salesperson, you typically live in this land of bookings, of sales. How much business did I close? What is the size of the contracts that I executed? And there's a lot of stuff, sort of the details within that you're kind of like, yeah, okay, well, I've given the customer X amount of time to pay. The contract start date is over here at a different time frame. There's all these terms and conditions that I had to agree to. None of that matters. I just booked a contract worth $1 million. That's fantastic. And I had to go through a lot of education actually with the sales team to explain how the structure of a contract and actually the terms and conditions can vastly change that $1 million value to the company and how that turns into actual revenue. And so to me, being able to educate the sales team very specifically on how sales becomes revenue. A very simple example here is if I book $1 million contract, but the start date isn't for another 3 months, well, I'm paying the salesperson on that commission pretty soon, but I don't start recognizing revenue for 3 more months until the start date of that contract has actually passed us. And so that is that's a concession that we've made, and we're paying the individual who booked the contract, but the company is not actually seeing any of the financial benefit on that. And oh, by the way, we don't invoice our customers until that start date has passed, which means we're not collecting the cash associated with that. So again, a mismatch between cash walking out the door and cash walking in the door. And there's a number of nuances there that I think a salesperson it's not really their job to be educated on that. It's not their education. It's probably not their background. But I thought that was an important piece of strategic knowledge that a sales team should understand so that we could all be aligned and that salespeople were out there building and selling contracts that add the most value to the organization from a public metric perspective.